Healthier You on Radio Maria 91.3, the voice of truth. If you're just joining us, we've been discussing about plastic pollution with our guests, Ifeoma Malo and Nonso Okeke. Ifeoma Malo is an environmental enthusiast. She is the co-founder of Clean Tech Hub Nigeria, and they are a pioneer energy innovation group that have been looking into how do we sustain our environment, how do we make sure that the environment is cleaner and healthier for us to stay. And also with us in the studio, we have Nonso Okeke, who is also a climate change analyst. And what have we been talking about so far? Plastic pollution, how it has affected us in our society, how it has the socioeconomic effects and all that. And then, Ekene, we've been talking about all this, like, okay, you drop the plastics, we use the plastic bottles, we drink from them, we even go as far as heating them up, use it to make food like moi moi and all that, you know. So now we've been talking about how it affects us, but what exactly is that thing in the plastics, you know, that actually affects us, and what exactly do they lead to? What do they do? Now, during the usage of PVCs, that's the polyvinyl chloride plastics, we have a toxin. Okay, we're not going to scientific here, but we're just trying to let you know that there are toxins in its phthalates that
harmful
when
substances.
released, they are harmful. You know, they are carcinogens, okay? We don't see them, but they are there. They are byproducts of all this. These are petroleum products they are byproducts of petroleum products and all that. So what this toxin basically does, it inhibits a lot in our system, okay? When we talk about insulin deficiencies, it inhibits insulin too. And we know what happens, okay?
I mean, the diabetes
Of course.
kicks in.
You know, so diabetes and heart attacks and coronary diseases, all these things come into place, and we're asking, but I don't drink Coke now, I don't eat sugar. When last did I eat
smoke,
sugar? When did I smoke? You know, I live a healthy life, okay? But we're not taking this into cognizance that this is even part of it at all. You know, so these are things that we're bringing into our notice, that these things are detrimental.
I mean, Stephanie, you're a mother, so when you talk about children, and you know the plastic bottles that you use for feeding them, so
not even those plastic bottles they use for feeding. You see these teethers that we give them, they chew, and okay, she's teething, give her, she chews and all that. Those things, they contain them, and you find out that children are easily affected. You find a child having a stunted growth, and you're wondering why. I've done everything I can, you know, I've done what I can do, but you don't know where it's coming from. Okay, these are genotoxins. They affect the child's genetical makeup, and it becomes an issue. So this issue of plastic pollution, again, is something that we really need to look into. You know, it's become a thing of concern.
Before we go further to talk about other health implications, let's also think about how it affects the climate. And we have a climate change analyst in the studio with us today. So, Nonso, how the use of plastics? Well, I mean, we all know that climate change is a huge issue for all of us, and we can see it by the changes in our weathers over the years. So, how does this affect influence the climate change, or how does it affect the climate? Yes.
Okay, so before I jump into that, let me just say, for those who may not be too familiar with the term climate change, it's basically the changing of our global climate patterns as a result of global warming, which is when we have trapped carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it traps in the heat coming from the sun, which then increases the global temperatures, and that has led to changing seasonal patterns, variability, unpredictability in weather, and then we've seen it in flooding, we've seen it in droughts, forest fires across the globe.
Will that be responsible for that heat we have in March? Like, everywhere is boiling, you're sleeping and water is dripping. This is not working.
Especially in some of the more temperate countries, when you notice every year it seems to be the hottest year on record.
Every year just seems to keep getting worse.
So the thing with plastics is, you see, in the production of plastics, a lot of it, first of all, plastic is actually made from crude oil, which is a fossil fuel.
Yeah.
So in order to make it, you have to first of all extract it and then refine it. And then we know one of the biggest emitters of carbon dioxide is the refining of crude oil. Exactly. So then when you have all these, gases being billowed into the atmosphere, released, that exacerbates the climate change issue. But then also, even just with, like Ms. Ife mentioned earlier, the burning of these plastic materials, all the fumes, all the toxins that come out of them, these also go up into the atmosphere. Exactly. And then that just further traps in the heat, traps in the gases, and it just, acid rain, another thing that destroys our crops, destroys our environment, destroys animal and plant life. So that's definitely a huge reason why plastic actually has an impact on the climate.
Wow. You can't help but wonder if some of these produce, like the people that are into the production of the, if they have.
Are they really aware of
all
these
of
things?
this?
Because
they know. Usually, it's profit over people and planet.
Wow.
You know when we talk about how the 3 Ps that we need, why we talk about the 3 Ps that are needed to actually change, the trajectory of the climate emergency we have now globally. We talk about its people, its planet, and then profit last.
Okay.
But what you have currently, the model that operates currently, is profit first.
To the top.
Yes,
very
top.
important.
And people, then second, and then planet.
Wow.
But the thing we're not thinking about is that without planet first,
we won't even be in existence.
So, a lot of the talk around climate emergency, a lot of the science shows that in another 30 years, we're in deep, deep trouble.
I'm telling you.
And as a mother, you talked about Stephanie being a mother. As a mother, it bothers me, because you brought children into the world, and my children are still under 10. Does that mean they have only about 40 or 50 years? So there's an emergency, and then that's why you're having all this COP26. We have COP27 in Egypt. There's now all this conference
coming up.
Yes, so you have a lot of even the international IOCs, the oil companies, the big polluters, the big tech companies. Now trying to make carbon reduction and carbon emission standards to meet those. So there's a huge conversation around it, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Okay, wow. Our phone lines should be open by now, and I'll call the phone lines again. 081 084 475 18. I repeat, 081 084 475 18. We'll hope to get in your calls, your SMSs, and your WhatsApp, your questions, your contributions, and your observations.
As you were saying earlier, Ife, you said that in the next 30 years that we're headed for serious trouble. Can you just give us an idea of where this is headed towards?
Okay, we have a call coming in. Okay, we've
So
lost
just
the
hold
call.
your thought.
We've lost the call. Okay, so
So
not to sound alarmist, we also want to be able to make sure that we're passing on the message without people getting into panic mode.
okay.
But a lot of the deep science has shown that the levels of emission, if not contained, if not sequestered, are rising at such a level that the amount of global catastrophic events that are going to occur as a result, mostly weather related, will be something that is unprecedented, and that no country on its own or even collectively will be able to manage it.
When we say these things, it looked like, okay, the scientists, they have come again, they just predict and predict. But when we say that in years to come, the successive years, these things just keep unfolding.
They do.
And and you're saying, this year is what, this year is this, and you don't know how it happens, so these things that are really serious. Like if it said, not to sound alarming, but the truth must be said. And the enlightenment must be done. And the society must be better. Our environment must be better.
Let me and again, I'm careful because we don't want to alarm people. Recently, the Global Association of Pilots,
okay,
the people who fly us all over the world, came out to say that they are really worried about the changing weather patterns and the unpredictability of it.
True.
So when you think of yourself in 10,000 ton of metal hurling across, space, right? Whether it's from Lagos to Enugu or to Abuja, or even from Lagos, Abuja to London or New York. And then the person who's flying the plane is telling you that things are changing. Sometimes, they don't have there is no indication of a sandstorm or wind, whatever.
Reports.
And then all of a sudden, they're finding themselves in the middle of this, and they have to navigate it, right? These are people who are saying things are changing. It's no longer the way it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. It's challenging also their professional skills and their ability to predict and ability to fly those planes and keep us safe.
Yeah, so it
affecting everything.
extrapolates to everybody. The
Everything.
geographies, like, they are confused. The environmentalists, the health workers, everybody gets overwhelmed. And when just imagine the year of lockdown and just one thing, and everybody's, so these are public health emergencies that we are not taking into cognizance, and we think is I beg it, they don't come with their English, but these are things that we keep talking about because of how stringent they are to our society.
And as we were talking about earlier, some of the health implications, you also find situations of where, as you talked about, stunted growth, and it also affects fertility and the fertility of because you talk about when people are married and stuff like that, you see, we're trying to
the endocrine system. Yeah. So, but when the hormones are affected, what do you expect? The reproductive glands, the adrenal glands, everything. So, can we hear you, please?
Yeah. So there's just something when you brought up the lockdown that we had.
Yeah.
I don't know if people remember, but I know from my house when I looked outside the window, I could see from miles because people weren't driving.
Yeah.
So all those emissions were gone.
Reduced.
But then once people came outside again,
you could.
Everywhere was just the visibility was done.
I think then we heard that India and China, they had the clearest of weather that they've experienced in how many years? These are from our actions. That was just to show us that these things are from men action. Like, you come out on the streets and you're walking past, you don't know the amount of emissions, carbon monoxide, and you inhale, and you don't know where the sicknesses are coming
you have to
from.
give it to them. I mean, they are making progress in terms of the automobile industry. Industries are trying to move into like water-based or like what our country we're still building refineries.
We're still talking about refineries building and all that. So. It's really something of major concern, and we'll keep looking into it a lot too. We talk about inflammation, okay? It's when toxins are in the system, of course. You will have the immunoglobulins.
Your body has to respond in some way.
Your body immunity has to respond to this situation, and then you find yourself down with a fever and all that. These are, inflammation of your organs, that the liver has to do some cleansing of the toxins and everything. So these things are just extrapolated generally. We don't, we just look at it like they're just talking, but these are practical things, and we really need to keep enlightening people. People need to hear it. People need to act it. People need to understand that this is dangerous. And that is why on Radio Maria 91.3 today, we have decided to bring this environment program to be able to tell us that our environment affects our health. And that is why we have brought plastic pollution to our knowing, because I'm sure a lot of people don't even know that. Okay, some people now right now will be like, these people have started, Stephanie and Kenny have started again. Ordinary bottle of water that we drink, Yes, coming back to ordinary bottles of water.
Yes,
You
also hear people when they tell you don't leave your water in the car, and then lock it up, and then the sun will hit it. So you have to actually think of
why are they saying this? Yeah, we know. We have bottled water and the rest of them. They are PET bottles. They are made of polyethylene stuff, and they may not be as serious as the PVC's plastics, but now when you keep them in that atmosphere, that heat, okay, the pH, what's in that bottle, okay, when the pH is affected and it affects the content of the bottle, you can also leach in the phthalates, though we have them in minute quantities, but it can also leach in and then becomes a toxin.
It's a build up over the years.
Keep. So when they bring this advice to us, there's actually a research that has gone down, and then people see the slight things and are able to say, okay, this is this because of this. Okay, so these are one of, like the sodas, you don't keep them and allow heat. Yeah. And then you come in, because once there is heat, there's degradation. Okay, and then something must have leached out. Okay, so we just have to be careful in all this. It's one of the major concerns. Okay, even if we say water is always very pure, it's okay and all that, but what are we using to bottle it? How is it affecting us? Okay, so this is what we keep
hammering on. We'll be going on a short break now. When we come back, we would don't forget our phone lines are open. The number again is 081 084 475 18 I'll take that again, 081 084 475 18.